Is there a way that you can block certain applications that you don't want people to use? Well, yes, there is. If you're using Microsoft 365, there's a product called Defender for Cloud Apps, and it can do just that. Plus, much more. And that is the topic for today's video. But before we start, just a quick intro. My name is Jonathan Edwards, also known as the Bearded 365 Guy. I help businesses all over the world with their Microsoft 365. You can get more information at thebearded365guy.com. Now, I always have a really interesting conversation with business owners. Is there a way that we can know what cloud applications people are actually using inside of the business? And more than that, is there a way that we can block certain applications if we really don't want to use them? Well, there is a product called Defender for Cloud Apps, and it's part of the Microsoft Defender for Business suite. And it can do just that, but it can do even more than that. It can also monitor your cloud applications for security problems, and it can automate responses. It's a really great tool. So that is what today's video is all about. But before I start launching into the product demo, I think it's best to talk about licensing. How much does all this cost? Now, if you're a regular watcher of my channel, you will know that my favorite Microsoft 365 license is Business Premium. Now, unfortunately, with Business Premium, you don't get the full version of Defender for Cloud Apps. You get kind of a dumbed down version. And I'm going to show you in a minute the differences. Now, if you want the full version of Defender for Cloud Apps, you're going to have to buy Microsoft 365 E5, which costs a whopping £50, $30 per user per month. Now, there's another way around it. You can also buy Enterprise Mobility and Security E5, which costs about £13.90 per user per month. So you could bolt that on to a Microsoft 365 Business Premium. So you'd have Business Premium at £18.10 and then £13.90 for the Enterprise Mobility and Security. Still expensive, but that will give you the full Defender for Cloud Apps suite. Now, enough of my talking about licensing. Let's start talking about the product. So the first feature of Defender for Cloud Apps that I want to talk about is something called Cloud App Discovery. Now, what is this? Well, it's very nifty. As the name implies, what Cloud App Discovery does is discover the cloud apps in your business. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're sat there thinking, I know what applications people are using in my business. I bet you don't. Now, when I initially roll this out for customers, most of the time, they're always pretty shocked. Who's using Dropbox? What's this application here? I didn't know about that. Now, by using Cloud App Discovery, you can change all of that. Now, there are two ways that you can use Cloud App Discovery. The first way, and this is the only way that works with Business Premium, is to upload your log files from your local firewall. Yes, I know. I don't like it either. And the second way, which you need full Defender for Cloud Apps for, is that you integrate it with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. So once all your devices are in Intune and using Defender for Endpoint, it integrates really nicely with Defender for Cloud Apps. This means you can get continuous automated reports. Now, what we'll do now is jump over to that PC and I'll show you both ways. Okay, so this tenancy is one that has Microsoft 365 Business Premium as the base license. I'm in the admin center. I'm logged in as a global admin. If I go down to admin centers and security, and down the left-hand side, if I scroll down, you can see that I've got Cloud Apps here. So this is where the Defender for Cloud Apps lives. Now, I've just got these options with the Business Premium, and you'll see in a minute how that differs from the full Defender for Cloud Apps license. But if I click on Cloud Discovery, this is all the option I have with my Business Premium. So what I can do here is I can create a new report, which I'll show you now. I'll click on there. I'll click on Next. I'll give the report a name, and then I've got to select a source. So whatever firewall, whatever security appliance that I'm using, I've got to basically upload the log files, whether it's a Barracuda, a Cisco, they've got WatchGuard in here, they've got a load of different options. Plus, if you scroll down to the bottom, you can choose other or generic. And then I can click on next, and what will happen at the end is I will get a report like this, and it'll show me all the apps that has been discovered via the appliance. Now, a lot of our customers don't really use appliances like this, and this report is just a point of time. It's a point in time as to when you upload the log files. It's not any continuous reporting going on. But as I said, a lot of our customers, they don't have those kind of appliances anymore. They are remote workers. They don't have an office. So this, in a nutshell, is pretty useless to them. So what does it look like when we've got the full version of Defender for Cloud Apps? Well, let me hop over to a tenant now and I'll show you. Okay, this is a tenancy which has the Microsoft 365 E5 license. I'm in the security portal again, and you can see under Cloud Apps, we've got a lot more options. Now, if I click into Cloud Discovery, what I get here is a nice dashboard. And at the top, you can see that this has been integrated with Defender for Endpoint. So I've got 61 apps that have been identified, 107 IP addresses, 56 users, 57 devices. We can scroll down here and we can see all the apps that Defender for Cloud Apps has discovered. We can click into any of these things, so I can drill down into the discovered apps. And it gives me a list of all the discovered apps. So you can see already we get a lot more options with the full version of Defender for Cloud Apps. Now, in a moment, we're going to talk more about all these options here because we've got quite a lot going on. We've got loads of different options. But before I do that, I mentioned earlier that Defender for Cloud Apps has been integrated with Defender for Endpoint. So what we've done and what we recommend is that all your devices are in Intune and they're all running Defender for Endpoint. Once that's in place, there's a few things you need to do. So if I scroll down to here, go into Settings. Firstly, go into Endpoints here, Advanced Features. And if we scroll down, we need to make sure that Custom Network Indicators is switched on. We also need to make sure that Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps is switched on, and it does point out here that we need an E5 license or an enterprise mobility and security. Once we're happy with that, go back to Settings, go to Cloud Apps, and you'll see if we scroll down here, you will see we've got a Defender for Endpoint option here. And we're going to talk more about these options later in the video. Now, the next feature that I want to talk about is the Cloud App Catalog. Now, Microsoft have done a pretty good job here. They've assessed over 30,000 different cloud applications, and they've scored these cloud applications based on 90 different factors. So what you can do with the Cloud App Catalog is you can do one of three things. You can sanction an application for use in your business. This means the application will be allowed. Or you can unsanction an app in your business, meaning the application will be blocked. Or there's a bit of a middle ground. You can set an application to be monitored. So you'll monitor that application and people might get a warning before they use it. I think it's time to take a look at the Cloud App Catalog. Okay, so I'm just in my test tenancy that we use for a lot of these videos. If I just head over now to the Cloud App Catalog, you can see this is what it's like. As I mentioned earlier, we've got over 33,000 applications that Microsoft have assessed. Now, a lot of these, you can see the risk score here, it's green, and they score 10 out of 10. A lot of these are obviously Microsoft applications, but what I can do, I can drill into these, and it tells you why they've scored it 10 out of 10. So we're talking about the general settings, the headquarters of the company, we're looking at security, whether they allow multi-factor authentication, admin audit trails, lots of different things here, and also compliance. So which accreditations are Microsoft aligned to? And you can see they've got a lot of different things going on here. And also some legal things as well, GDPR, data ownership. So Microsoft have scored themselves 10 out of 10, which is pretty good. Now you can see here again, we've got lots of different categories as well. So if I go into health maybe, you can see I'm going to have lots of different applications. And a lot of these, of course, aren't Microsoft ones. If I do the risk score the other way around, so I start with the ones that have scored a low risk score, you can see Microsoft have found lots of different ones. Let's look at this one here. And you can see that this company, I don't know who it is, but they don't score too highly on the Microsoft score. So for example, if you found that this application was being used in your business via cloud discovery, you could come in here, you could have a look at it, and then you could make a decision about it. So what decision could you make about it? Well, this is where we use these options here. So we can click on here and we can sanction this app. That means that this app is allowed to be used in our business. The opposite of that is obviously unsanctioned. So if we unsanction an app, it's blocked and we can't use it in the business. And then we've got another option here where we can monitor this application. So when we monitor an application, it can be used in the business, but what we can do is we can educate users on that application. So how does this all work in the real world? Well, let's have a look. Let's go back to the cloud discovery application here. We'll go to the discovered apps. Now, Microsoft have discovered that we are using Dropbox. I'm not too happy about this, but people might need to use it. So what I've done, you can see here, this is being monitored. So I went into here and I selected monitored, okay? What I can also do is I can sanction these applications because I'm happy with these, happy with all these, happy with that, happy with Cloudflare, I'm happy with all these. So that just those catch up. Dropbox is set to monitored. Now, one app that I don't want to be using in the business, and it's not been picked up on Discovered Apps yet, but I've heard really bad things about Box, okay? Now, I'm just making this up. I'm sure Box are a very nice company. But if I search in here and look for Box, you can see Box is here. Now, it gets 10 out of 10. I don't want people in my business using it. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to tag this as unsanctioned. And it's just going to be a heads up here that apps with an unsanctioned tag will be blocked by Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. I can click on Save. Now you can do all kinds of things with this, so you can block certain groups and things like that. Now, the final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Settings here. I'm going to go to Cloud Apps. I'm going to go down to Defender for Endpoint, and I would tick this. I've already ticked it, but you can see here, Enforce App Access. Enabling this will block access to apps that are marked as unsanctioned, and it will deliver the warning message on access and allow bypass to apps marked as monitored. Now, I've got some more settings here. Look, user notifications. So I can direct people to a different URL. So I can say, look, we're blocking Dropbox, and I can direct them to a URL with information as to why we're blocking Dropbox. And there's also a URL for blocked apps as well. So warned apps and blocked apps. So how does this look in the real world? Well, let's hop over to my Fred Finance virtual Windows 11 PC and see what happens. Okay, I'm on a virtual PC. This is a Windows 11 computer used by our fictitious character, Fred Finance. So Fred started work today, and what he's going to do is going to log into Dropbox because he wants to do some work. Now, as you can see, he's now got this message. This website is blocked by your organization. You can see it says up here, block content. Contact your administrator for more information. But Fred's also got an option here to click on allow. Now, if he clicks on allow, what will happen is it will allow him to go to Dropbox. It'll still say block content up there, but it's allowed him to bypass it. So how does that bypass work? Well, if I just minimize this virtual machine, go back to here, the bypass duration is set to 1 hour. So after that, if Fred goes back to Dropbox, he'll get that message again and he'll have to bypass it again. So we're just warning people. We're not disallowing them from using it. So Fred's finished with Dropbox. He comes out of there, but then he remembers he's got some data in Box.com. And if you remember, we didn't like Box.com, did we? So we banned it. So going on to Box, and it just says, this website's been blocked. But the difference is, Fred can't bypass this. So Box.com is an unsanctioned application, and unfortunately, Fred just cannot access it. So hopefully, you can already see that Defender for Cloud Apps could be a really valuable tool for your business. But there's more to this platform than just sanctioning applications. There's the security monitoring, which I find incredibly useful. Now imagine this scenario. You've got a busy chief executive and she's working really hard, but her Microsoft 365 account gets compromised by a hacker in a different country. Imagine now if Defender for Cloud Apps could automatically spot this, and it could disable the chief executive's account before the hacker does any real damage. But Defender for Cloud Apps goes further. It also sends an email to the IT team so they know about it straight away. We can do that with Defender for Cloud Apps. Or let's imagine a different scenario. You've got a disgruntled employee who starts sharing company data with their personal email address. Defender for Cloud Apps could immediately notify their line manager. Plus, it could make sure that the data that they're sharing with their personal email address wasn't accessible outside the office. You can do all that with policies in Defender for Cloud Apps. Let's take a look. So we're back in at Cloud Discovery. At the bottom of Cloud Apps here, you can see there's a Policies section. So if I click on Policy Management, now you can see these are all the policies, there's 28 of them, that Microsoft have baked into their solution. So at the moment, I'm selecting all policies, but I can minimize it by these categories if I want. If I just scroll down, you can see that there's some really interesting ones here. Firstly, let's have a look at impossible travel. So what I can do then, I can go into here and I can edit the policy. In editing the policy, it'll just give me some more information about it. So you can see this is a built-in detection policy, and it gives you a description. So this profile, I'll tell you what impossible travel is. Basically, if I log into my Microsoft 365 in London, and then 10 minutes later, I log into my Microsoft 365 in New York, that is what is classed as impossible travel. I can't get from London to New York in 10 minutes. So there might be an issue. There might not be an issue. I could be maybe logging into a VPN or something, but there might be an issue. And we can now set within Microsoft 365 what we want to do with that issue. So the first thing obviously is the scope. Do we want this policy to apply to all users and groups or specific users and groups? Then we can go on to alerts. So what do we want to do? We can send an alert to an email. So if you're an IT department, you could send this to the IT department email so it can get picked up really quickly. If you're an MSP, maybe your service desk email, again, so someone can get hold of it and act on it. Also, we can go further than that because we've got some governance actions. If I click on the drop down here, what we can do, we can notify users. So I can notify the end user that this has happened. So if it's a busy executive, we can send them an automatic email to say, the impossible travel, is this you? We can go further than that. We can go and suspend the user in Azure AD so it can stop them from logging on. If that's a busy executive, they might get a little bit annoyed by that, but it's an option. Plus, what we can also do is confirm that the user's been compromised. So in Azure Active Directory, Enter ID, the user's risk level will go to high. So that could kick in some additional conditional access policies. And then once I'm happy with all that, I can simply just update it all. I'll just come back out of that because I want to show you something else. Now, I've got so many other policies that are baked into 365 here. Microsoft have also given these a severity, so you might as well go and configure these. Look, we've got suspicious index forwarding. That's what a lot of hackers do when they compromise an email account. They'll set up forwards. But wouldn't it be great if you could be alerted to that as an IT provider as it's happening? You can then nip that in the bud. You can also, if we just go into that, again, the governance actions, click on here, we can do the same things. We could suspend the account. We could confirm the user has been compromised. Lots of great policies here. But there's also more policy templates here. So these are the ones baked into 365. These are the ones that you can create your own. Now, there's lots of different ones here. The one that I want to show you, because a lot of our clients ask about this, is data shared with personal email addresses. I know a lot of business owners that this is a bit of a concern for. So I could go into here. I could create a policy based on that. That's going to give it a name. We can change that if we want. We can give it a severity. And the category is sharing control. Now, we can build filters in here. So what we can do, these are all kind of policy templates, but we can get a blank policy and we can build filters. So it's really granular. But what this policy is saying, this is a Microsoft suggested policy, is anything personal email addresses. So it's built all these in. And what we're saying is if files are shared from OneDrive for Business, SharePoint Online to personal email addresses, we can do lots of different things. So yes, we can send an alert, but we can also do things within Microsoft OneDrive for Business and SharePoint. We can notify specific users. We can put the user into quarantine. This one I like. What we can do is apply a sensitivity label. So what we could do is we could have a sensitivity label, which means that data can't be accessed by people outside the organization. And we could apply that sensitivity label when someone tries to share some data to any of these domains. So it would kick in that the person receiving that wouldn't be able to access that data. So that is a really strong policy you can have. So there's the policies built into Defender for Cloud Apps. So there you have it, Defender for Cloud Apps, an incredibly useful security tool that you can get with Microsoft 365. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Look forward to seeing you again soon.